The Australian Parliament has now passed the $130 billion JobKeeper package. My office is being inundated with queries, mainly from businesses, so I thought I'd share my answers to some of the most common questions that are coming through. Everyone's busy, so let me get straight to it. Firstly, what is the new scheme? The scheme is called JobKeeper. It's a wage subsidy, and its objective is to keep businesses in business, employees in work, and the relationship between businesses and employees intact. What's on offer? The government is offering a payment of $1,500, that's $1,500 a fortnight per employee of distressed businesses. The payment will be paid from the government to the business, and they in turn will pay it to the employee. Can the $1,500 vary for different employees? This is a flat payment. It's the same for every eligible employee. How do you define an employee? Employees are basically defined as people who have been on the books from the 1st of March this year. Anyone working full-time, part-time, or a long-term casual who's been connected with the business for 12 months or more. Now, there are two other questions that regularly come up about casuals. One, why define the period over 12 months? The answer, because we've adopted the definition in the Fair Work Act. And two, what about casuals from overseas? The answer, JobKeeper will only be for Australian citizens and permanent residents who are on the pathway to citizenship. And there's one exception here, and that's for New Zealanders who are on the 444 visa. Is my business eligible? It varies by type and size of business and ultimately comes down to how much your turnover, that is your GST turnover, has declined compared to a relevant period, typically the year before. So for big businesses that have a turnover of $1 billion or more, they need to see a decline in their turnover of at least 50%. For small and medium businesses, the threshold of turnover decline needs to be 30% or more, and for not-for-profits, the threshold of turnover decline is 15%. Does JobKeeper apply to sole traders, and what about trusts and partnerships? Yes, yes, and yes. What if the turnover test isn't a relevant measure for my business? The ATO will have some discretion to take into account special circumstances where a business doesn't satisfy the decline in turnover test. For example, if a business is new and doesn't have a commensurate period last year in 2019 to report against, or if a business was severely impacted by the drought last year, and so 2019 becomes a really low basis to compare against. Or if a business has made a major purchase this year, which has skewed their turnover compared to last year, these sorts of things will be taken into account. But will every possible nuance be accounted for? No. Guidance material will be made available, and if your situation falls outside of that guidance, then the Tax Commissioner will have some discretion to consider more nuanced anomalies. If my business is eligible, will I automatically receive the payments? No, you won't. The scheme requires employers to actively seek to participate. If you think you're eligible, go to the ATO's website, ato.gov.au, and register. The ATO will then communicate with those businesses that have registered and ask them to formally demonstrate their eligibility. Are there organisations that are not eligible no matter what? Yes, there are. State, local governments aren't eligible, nor are wholly owned entities of any tier of government. So Australia Post, the NBN, for example, they can't apply, and nor can the major banks due to the bank levy. Are there any age limitations? Yes, an eligible employee must be 16 years of age or older. Does my business need to pay the super guarantee on JobKeeper? As we all know, businesses are obliged to make a contribution to employee superannuation, referred to as the super guarantee. So if we accept the principle that the super guarantee is paid on salaries for hours worked, the answer is it depends. If an employee is stood down and gets the $1,500 a fortnight, the employer doesn't have to pay the super guarantee. If an employee's hours have been reduced, so they used to be on $3,000, now they're on the $1,500 JobKeeper payment, the employer would be required to pay the super guarantee on the $1,500. If an employee who usually gets, say, $2,000 a fortnight keeps getting $2,000 a fortnight, even though you're using the wage subsidy, then you have to continue paying the super guarantee in full. Let's say you have, though, a casual who gets less than the $1,500. Let's say they get $1,000, but now, due to JobKeeper, they get $1,500. The employer would continue to pay the superannuation on the $1,000, but not on the additional $500. How do I manage all the industrial relations issues around this? We have changed industrial relations law temporarily to enable this scheme. In short, the flexibility is now there to pay people, where necessary, $1,500 a fortnight. These changes we've made allow for fewer hours to be worked, different duties to be undertaken, different locations to be worked from, including, of course, working from home. And employees can be asked to draw down on their annual leave, so long as they're not left with any less than 2 weeks. So the flexibility is now there, but of course the expectation is that the processes will be followed and any changes made have to be necessary for the viability of the business, and they have to be reasonable. Guidance will be made available, and of course there will be different tests that will apply. And rest assured that the Fair Work Commission will operate where issues need to be resolved. A few questions from individuals here. Can I personally collect both Jobseeker, the old New Start program, and also a JobKeeper payment? No, you can only be on one. Keep in mind, if you were on the books of a business on the 1st of March that became eligible for JobKeeper, and in the interim you've gone on Jobseeker, you can transfer from Jobseeker to JobKeeper. What about collecting the government's paid parental leave and JobKeeper? No, you can't receive both at the same time. Mind you, if you think you'll need the government's PPL scheme in the future, however, JobKeeper will satisfy the work test that's usually required to receive PPL. As an employee, can I receive JobKeeper from more than one employer? No, you cannot. When does the scheme begin? JobKeeper becomes operational now that it's passed the Parliament, but it's actually effective from the 30th of March, the end of March. In other words, a business can claim JobKeeper for its employees for the month of April. Then in terms of when the government payments begin, they are paid monthly in arrears, with the first payment made in the first half of May. Payments are to be made no later than 14 days after the end of the calendar month. But frankly, we want this money out the door, and so we'd hope that it would be made faster than that. And when does the scheme end? The scheme runs for approximately 6 months, so it'll end by the end of September. Is the JobKeeper package the only government support available? Definitely not. This is the third major economic package that we've announced. The first was a stimulus package to support cash flow and investments, worth about $17.6 billion. The second package was effectively a cushion to the blow for people who hit unemployment, people who were stood down. It was worth $66 billion. And now we have passed this package worth $130 billion called JobKeeper. Well, I think that's about it for the JobKeeper. I hope these answers have made some start for you. If I can finish with one message. Under the usual circumstances, these sorts of measures would require months, if not years, for design and consultation. But we don't have the luxury of time. We're amidst a global pandemic. As the Prime Minister has said, we're here to save lives and livelihoods, so we have to move fast. So will there be imperfections in some of these measures? Yeah, there will be. But we can't allow perfection to be the enemy of the good. And this scheme is good. It'll help our nation now when we're in the trenches in this fight against COVID-19, and it will help us recover on the other side. Thank you. Stay safe.
Authorised by Ted O'Brien MP, LNP, Maroochydore, Queensland.